Hello, everybody. It's your friendly digital technology librarian, Christy here, and we have reached yet another Friday, so of course, I have another set of film recommendations ready for everyone out there. Now, as promised, since last week we had part one of our Hallmark-style holiday recs, I have part two all ready to go for everybody. So, if you happen to have a Milan-Berlin library card, as always, all 10 of these upcoming recommendations are available to you totally for free, and these ones come from our two services, CleveNet's Overdrive and Hoopla Digital. We also have, of course, our Canopy service, but Canopy doesn't really offer Hallmark-style romances on it. They offer tons of phenomenal films, though, so please do check that out as well. So without any further ado, I want to go ahead and dive into all of the recs. Per usual, our first set of recommendations are all going to come from CleveNet's Overdrive, and the first of those is for a film called The Spirit of Christmas. The Spirit of Christmas is definitely a fantasy piece. It follows a very career-driven realtor named Kate. She's supposed to broker a sale for this big, beautiful, historic inn, but finds out that it may or may not be haunted by a ghost. She definitely is determined, however, to make this sale happen. So she still goes through with going to the property and everything and meets this ghost whose name is Daniel. And after some bickering, of course, because this is, kind of a screwball romance, they come to an accord and she agrees to help Daniel figure out what happened, to cause his death over, I think, 90 years ago. If she can help him figure out what happened, he will leave the hotel so that she can just make the sale work. Premise kind of ridiculous, totally acknowledged, but it is also, one of those HEA promised titles, and the two have very solid chemistry. It feels quite old-fashioned in a way, like the Ghost and Mrs. Muir kind of style of filmmaking. Please don't hate me, the people who are huge fans of that movie. But it's really quite charming in its own way. So if you are a fan of fantasies, if you like a little bit of mystery thrown in with your romance, of course, if you love the holiday spirit of things, make sure you check out The Spirit of Christmas. It's quite a lovely little romance. My second recommendation is for a film called The Truth About Christmas. Now, this one is definitely very lighthearted. If you've seen the film Liar Liar with Jim Carrey, you will sort of know what the kind of premise is for this one. Jillian is this woman with a very strategically plotted out life. She is a political consultant in New York. She is dating this politico who does intend, in fact, to marry her. She's going to be a political wife. She's got her future plotted out as far as she can see, And then one Christmas, when her fiance is planning to bring her home to his family to meet them, she is given the task of finding this super duper hard toy to get. And she forgets all about it until the very last second. And of course, because it's New York and there are millions of people there, and toys are in general very hard to come by during the holiday season, she has some serious problems getting this toy. And when she does manage to track one down, she ends up lying to a small child who reached the toy just before her in order to keep it for herself. This small lie to a child prompts, I don't know, a spirit of Christmas to wreak a little havoc in her life, and he ends up cursing her with an inability to tell lies, which results in some very funny situations, especially since she's going to her in laws for the first time and she wants to make a really good impression. She's not even able to tell white lies that you would, probably tell in general, like about very small things. She's just 100% honest, and it is quite amusing. Um, she, of course, goes through this arc of, while being forced to tell the complete and utter truth and not be able to be diplomatic at all, not able to sugarcoat things, she discovers a lot of things about herself. One, does she really just want to be a political wife when she's been this woman with so much drive to succeed in her specific career? Does she want to be someone who stands at the sidelines kind of situation? And um, it's an interesting mix of quite lighthearted moments with, some very serious themes as well. And one of the other things that I really loved about this particular one is that the cast is quite racially diverse. You don't often see that in Hallmark style romances. Um, Regardless of what network they originally aired on or what production company puts them together. So that was also really appealing to me, personally coming from a multiculti background, but just in general, as far as enjoying stories about today's world, being able to see a family that sort of mirrors many other families was really, really a pleasant surprise. So if you are interested in something that's very funny, that has a lot about um, career driven mindedness, but that also has quite a bit of heart to it, check out The Truth About Christmas in Overdrive. Definitely an excellent film. My next recommendation is for a sweet little lighthearted title called Naughty and Nice. Now, Naughty and Nice follows a hotshot radio DJ from Los Angeles. He ends up getting into quite a bit of trouble for saying all the wrong things on his radio show one day, and ends up being sort of exiled to this teeny tiny mountain town, and a radio station that's in this mountain town. While he's DJing in this obviously very, very, very different environment, he meets another on air radio jockey, and the two initially have massive, massive arguments on air and off, but eventually start to, spark a bit of a romance. And it's always interesting seeing like these characters that are fish out of water end up living and working in small towns. As someone who currently lives in a very small town, who has lived in very large places, it's an interesting dichotomy to see mirrored, and how Hollywood views both situations, like the stereotypes that are very present and that are always present in these kinds of films, about small towns or about big cities, and the personalities that live in each, and how each would be floundering should they be forced to travel to one or the other. Um, and this one, definitely sticks to those stereotypes, but at the same time does it in a fairly endearing way, so that you really do feel the charm of small town life. You really do um, understand, however, the difficulties someone coming from such a large city would have, um, moving back and forth between two worlds. So, this one is a great one for people who like that sort of um, that particular kind of vibe. And the romance and chemistry between the two main characters is really, really very solid. So I would definitely recommend this one for just anybody who's looking for a solid, funny, screwball style romantic comedy. It definitely has like a throwback feel at the same time. So, Naughty and Nice, also available on Overdrive. Excellent choice. My next Overdrive recommendation is for all the foodies out there, and it's called The Christmas Calendar. Now, in The Christmas Calendar, we are primarily focusing on this former lawyer from a really big city who returns to this small town that she grew up in. Her name is Emily, and her grandmother had at one point owned this bakery that she had always been a part of, that Emily had always been a part of when she was little. And the grandmother was very, very successful and very, very well known in this small town. Um, Emily is trying to keep the small town bakery alive and running when she's receiving a ton of massive competition, essentially from across the street, and this new sort of uh, what's the word, big box store style bakery. It's part of a chain, and it's part of, big time corporate America. uh, and she's having some serious difficulties competing because she is very small family owned place, that kind of situation. um, Not surprisingly, um, her romantic interest is a chef at the big box based bakery. And, you've got a bit of a You've Got Mail vibe going for a large part of the film, where she doesn't necessarily know that he's from a competing bakery. They just happen to have a really good spark going. Um, of course, once she learns that he is her competition, there's bickering galore, and they are quite charming together, the two main characters. There's also a bit of a mystery going on. She has this Christmas calendar from a secret admirer that keeps coming every day, and this Christmas calendar actually spawns a ton of interest within the town itself, so it really helps her business out quite a bit as well. And so you've got these layers of things happening at the same time, which I always appreciate because, of course, I do love a holiday romance that's just simple and like boy meets girl, happily ever after kind of situation. But I do like these ones where you've got a little bit more going on as well. Um, so with this big chain issue happening at the same time, you are always entertained. There's not really space to be bored, even if you've got a fairly simple story going on. Now, I will mention that one particular flaw with this is the male love interest. For whatever reason, they decide to force him to have this really hokey French accent because all bakers are French. I don't know. It's weird. It's something. um, and that one did bother me. I will absolutely acknowledge that. But I don't think it overwhelms the general storyline. I think that the story and romance is strong enough to, you know, allow a hokey accent to just be kind of there and just to be able to be ignored. So, if you can get over that, if you love like sweet, pun intended, romances, if you enjoy foodie films, I would definitely recommend Christmas Calendar. It is a lot of fun, and you've got a lot of food eye candy going on. I mean, the baked goods look delicious, so yes, Christmas Calendar, also on Cleveland's Overdrive. Now, my very last Overdrive recommendation is for sort of, I want to say Groundhog Day-esque film, but Groundhog Day isn't exactly the right comparison. Now, this one is called Back to Christmas, and it follows Allie, a very successful career-driven woman who meets a stranger with whom she sort of strikes an accord, and after sort of talking about her life, manages to reveal that she just wishes that she could go back to her last Christmas and redo everything that had happened. Not surprisingly, um, when she next wakes up, she is back in her life from exactly 1 year ago, to that time point that she was discussing with the stranger. And she has the chance to change everything that she'd ever wanted to change, especially at this one particular what she views as a particularly pivotal moment. Maybe it's more a Wonderful Life-esque, I guess. It has elements from both. It is very funny in parts, but also very heartfelt in others. The acting is actually really, really solid. You've got a couple of familiar faces in there. If you were, say, a Veronica Mars fan, the Sheriff Lamb is one of the main love interests in this, and other faces that you definitely will recognize. So they do have a pool of performers that is capable of putting in solid performances. And the story itself is actually very warm and genuine, and while not, the most original tale ever told, the whole concept of going back in time to change something, should you ever change it, what happens then kind of concept is definitely omnipresent in this storyline. But I don't know, something about it feels really fresh, and it feels, not like you're watching a rehash of a theme that's been done many times. Uh, the heroine herself is very likable from beginning to end. Uh, she's one of those characters that you can understand why she made the choices that she has. Her parents are absolutely adorable characters. Her love interests are also really both appealing. That's the other thing. I do like both love interests. Most of the time in Hallmark-style films, you have a very obvious choice going on. Somebody is very, very, very flawed, and the other one is always perfect. And that's just not the case here. You really have two people who she could be with, and you would understand why. So if you like your holiday romances with fantasy, but also a little bit more relatability in them, definitely check out Back to Christmas. It's definitely one of my favorites that I've watched this season. All right, moving right along to our Hoopla digital recommendations, I'm going to kick things off with a film called Sweet Mountain Christmas. Now, Sweet Mountain Christmas is perfect for all the music lovers out there. It stars Megan Hilty, who will be well known to any Broadway fan. She has played Glinda in Wicked. She also was one of the leads in the big TV series Smash about Broadway singers. She's a fantastic, fantastic performer. I mean, just really, really solid. And she's the lead character. She plays country music star Lainey Blue. Now, Lainey had grown up in this teeny tiny Tennessee town that she, of course, was absolutely thrilled to leave. And then when she leaves, she ends up finding success out in the big bad world as a singer. And, she never looks back. She's not sorry to have left. She doesn't have a whole lot of nostalgia for her childhood. She's moving on. Now, one Christmas time, she decides to head home, make a quick pit stop in this teeny tiny town so that she can visit her family, and then she plans to be out and back on the road, moving on. The weather has different plans. She ends up getting snowed in, and while she's snowed in, she ends up revisiting all of these different things from her youth. And I think it is quite realistic in that regard. how we view things as children and teens and young adults versus how we view them as actual adults. Um, and she goes through all of those emotions that you would expect someone to. She, of course, meets someone while she's in her hometown. They have sparks, there's romance, and of course, a happily ever after is certainly in store. That's not a spoiler, that's just how these Hallmark style holiday movies work. Um, and, you know, it ends up being one of those films that you just feel warm and fuzzy about. Um, I loved the music. I am not personally a country fan, and it doesn't matter. The music in this was wonderful. Um, in large part, of course, to Hilty just being a fantastic performer, but also just because the music was really nice in this. Um, the acting was solid. The chemistry was really good. Um, it just was an excellent, fun holiday film to watch. And if you are looking for something that has this feeling of nostalgia that definitely touches on small town life and the things that are appealing about small town life, please, please, please make sure that you check out Sweet Mountain Christmas. Also, for music lovers out there, whether you are a country fan, whether you are not a country fan, if you like music, this one's definitely one to watch. My second recommendation from Hoopla Digital is much more of a screwball comedy than the previous pick. This one is called Christmas Catch, and it follows a young, ambitious detective named Mackenzie Bennett. Now, Mackenzie is pretty new to her job, but she is really driven. She's really interested in climbing the ranks, and when the FBI approaches her because they are hot on the trail of this big hotshot diamond thief, she is just raring to go. Except the main suspect turns out to be this guy who she had serious chemistry with, that she just got hit on and is now kind of going on a date with. Um, so she has to keep reminding herself that this guy is definitely not a good guy and that he's probably a diamond thief. He's someone that she absolutely shouldn't feel guilty about lying to. Uh, and of course, all of these hilarious things happen because of these lies that she has to tell him and about her ending up being undercover on these dates with this guy. It is kind of ridiculous, but at the same time, a lot of fun. So if you are looking for, something with a little bit of a caper feel to it, definitely with screwball comedy elements in it, check out Christmas Catch. It's a real fun one, and you will definitely enjoy yourself while you're watching. My next recommendation is for a film called A Date by Christmas Eve, and this one is just a really sweet, fun, sort of silly romance. It follows a young woman named Chelsea Sims, who is the brand strategist and brand manager for a dating app. Very contemporary story. Um, and this dating app is called The Nice List. Somehow, with fantasy magic that always happens in these holiday films, she ends up with these strange powers. The app itself is able to turn naughty or not nice people into nice people all of a sudden. And she very much enjoys that ability. But then it also can put people on the naughty list. Uh, Chelsea has a good rapport and friendship with her neighbor. He's a very sweet guy. She definitely likes him. But she ends up accidentally putting him on the naughty list. Um, and a ton of ridiculous screwball comedy-esque elements happen as she struggles to get him off the naughty list before Christmas Eve. So you've got this sort of madcap ridiculousness going on. It is very, very silly, but it is lighthearted and sweet and charming, and it's just one of those titles that's a lot of fun to watch. If you're looking for something that doesn't require you to think deeply about very much, uh, but that is still going to leave you with warm fuzzies, check out A Date by Christmas Eve. You'll also recognize probably a couple of people in the cast, which I think is always nice with these particular kinds of movies. It's just a little bit of a bonus. So, A Date by Christmas Eve, also on Hoopla. Ah, my next recommendation from Hoopla is for another foodie friendly title called A Sweet Christmas Romance. Now, in A Sweet Christmas Romance, you are dealing with a food stylist named Holly who discovers that when she returns home, her longtime mentor, played by Loretta Devine, whom I absolutely adore, uh, is closing down her own bakery that she has run for years and years and years. Now, Holly remembers this bakery so fondly. She has a ludicrous number of memories there. That's essentially where she grew up. That's why she became a food stylist, in fact. So she's kind of taken aback that this place that she called home is closing down. Now, the thing is that the character that plays the mentor has decided to run a contest uh, in order to determine who she will leave the old bakery to. Holly, of course, is determined to win, but she discovers that she has some competition from another local baker. This, of course, has a ton of room for it to play with the whole trope of rivals and opposite personalities because they are very different. Uh, but it works really well. These two characters are a lot of fun to watch on screen. The bickering is ultimately very charming. Um, and the story itself works very well in this particular setting. I love romantic rivalry stories. And then you have like the foodie element to boot. You also have Loretta Devine in the cast. Um, so if you like any of those things, if you like all of those things, absolutely check out A Sweet Christmas Romance. So much fun, lots and lots of elements going on at the same time that are thoroughly enjoyable. So yes, please do check it out. Sweet Christmas Romance, available on Hoopla Digital. My very last recommendation for the week is called A Very Vintage Christmas. Now, this one is another title that appealed to me for multiple reasons, including having a multiculti cast, as well as having some very, very familiar faces. The main character is played by one of the Maori sisters, Tia Maori Hardrict, I think is her married last name. And Maori is one of the sisters in the Sister Sister series, which was hugely popular back in the day. She plays this antique shop owner who's thoroughly charming. The character is just really, really lovable, but the setting is also really excellent. I love tales about people who are sort of obsessed with antiques and nostalgia, things like that. Now, uh, Maori plays a character named Dodie, who is a hopeless romantic. And one holiday season, when she is checking out some of her antique wares, she discovers this box full of memorabilia about this old romance. And the old romance, let me tell you, is just as engrossing as the inevitable new romance that goes on surrounding this particular film. Um, when Dodie discovers this box, she does some detective work of her own, and it leads her to the apartment building that this couple had once inhabited. She meets the new tenant of the apartment, and they, of course, have sparks. She manages to convince him to help her find this older couple, and it just sets off this journey of so many sweet and wonderful moments. if you like stories that have elements of the past in them, but also have characters that are just thoroughly likable, please do check out A Very Vintage Christmas. It has an old-fashioned feel to it that I found really engrossing and really enjoyable. And I will definitely be adding this particular film to my holiday rotation in the future. So, A Very Vintage Christmas, also available on Hoopla Digital. And with that, I am completely done with both parts 1 and 2 of our Hallmark-style holiday romances. Um, I have linked below all of these films like normal, but I've also linked to trailers for them since it's a little bit harder to find info about these titles than it is to find your standard movies. So if you're curious about any of them, please do check out the links, and you'll be able to see a little bit more about these movies. As always, if you have any recommendations yourself that you would like other people to check out, please make a comment. I love checking out new films, you know that. If you have any recommendations for future themes that you'd like us to flesh out in the next few months, also comment with those as well. Um, and with that, I am going to go ahead and sign off. But I do hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful holiday season. Please continue to check back. We will always have new content, especially in the new year. I've got a lot of really, really great things planned. Um, so please do. Hopefully, I will see you again in the weeks coming. And with that, I'm going to sign off and say goodbye. And we will see you again soon.